from betrayal trauma is not so straightforward. And that's why we have an expert here. Her name is Samantha Bailey, and she'll tell us all about how you too can heal from betrayal trauma. And what's so special about Samantha is that she's an author, speaker, and post-betrayal transformation coach. And she can help you too. And please tell us, what's the secret to your success? And does it have anything to do with overcoming your own traumas and now teaching hundreds of people to do the same? Heal Podcast with Lily Patrascu shares longevity and anti-aging techniques to stay young forever, increase energy, overcome addiction, and live your longest, best life ever, shared by world's most innovative, alternative, and traditional health thought leaders, healers, and doctors. Discover quantum healing strategies to heal your mind, body, and soul.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So I have to go back about 5 years when I was living in Hawaii and working, loving life, had made some friends. We were there by that time 3 years, and was just content with life and enjoying paradise until one day I found out my husband was having what I thought was one affair. But after a year's time and trickled truth, after I discovered more and more information, I found out that he was having multiple affairs with sugar babies, escorts, and prostitutes, and pretty much depleting our retirement savings, spending money on them for luxury trips, vacations, designer shopping sprees, money for time and sex. And it really put me in a dark place for quite a while.
Wow. Okay. And what did you discover there? Like, what was your epiphany when you discovered this? And how did you turn this terrible situation around into an amazing, successful Samantha?
Sure. I found out just kind of by accident, scrolling through his, I guess his password on his email, kind of feeling a little bit guilty because I was not a snoop. I'd never checked up on him. We'd been, married. We were married for just over 20 years. And I was scrolling through his email and everything looked pretty normal until I clicked archive. And I discovered a hotel reservation for the following night, reservation for 2, queen bed. I still put it out of my mind because I was thinking, well, it's my birthday today. Maybe he's surprising me with a hotel night, that following night. But I was like, I don't know, because he had asked me if he could go out for drinks after work with someone, and, I never minded. And so I went to work that morning, and there were streamers and balloons and gifts all around my desk. And I was like, man, I don't feel like celebrating my birthday because I'm thinking my husband is having an affair, but I'm still kind of in denial. And I took a look at the email again and realized that not only did he have a reservation for the next night, the week before when he was supposed to be in Phoenix on a business trip, or told me he was actually at a beachfront resort in Hawaii, reservation for 2, and it threw me for a loop because I confirmed at that moment that I knew he had been cheating, and it wasn't just a surprise for me. It was a surprise, that's for sure. But when I confronted him, of course, he denied almost in an angry tone, like, I would never cheat on you. I love you too much. Why would you ask me? And I lost it, and I confronted him with the information that I had. And there was the longest, well, it probably wasn't long, but to me it felt long, but 5 seconds of no talking on the phone. And I knew then that the truth was unfolding. And I don't remember a lot. I remember kind of crumbling to the floor and, blurting out accusations like, how could you? Who is she? Where did you meet? How long? And, on and on, and I couldn't exactly remember what I said. And more and more truths came out over time, and I realized I was in a very dark place for about 3 years until I came upon this website, and I had read a lot of self-help books, and I'd gone to therapy and counseling, and we were still trying to work on our marriage, and he was doing everything quote unquote perfectly and behaving, but there's a catch to that. And on the site, there was a quiz for betrayal trauma, and it showed where you were on the, I guess, spectrum, so to speak. And it was rated 1 to 5. 1 being you've just discovered you're really in a bad place. 5, you're in a great place and you're on the road to recovery, and your life is filled with joy. Well, I came back with a number 3. The best way I can describe it, it was like I was able to get, move around and get from point A to point B, but it was like I was carrying this massive ball and chain around. So getting from point to point was exhausting and heavy. And I was basically living life, but I wasn't living my fullest life. It was just, hard carrying this burden around. And so what I loved about this PBT Institute was everyone who is involved in the training and the Institute has experienced betrayal in one form or another. So that made it relatable to me. And also, healing isn't a linear line. What I needed for being a number 3 was different than I wouldn't be taking courses for a number 1 who's just discovered. So it's almost like they're catered to where you are in that place. And I took all the courses that I could get my hands on through them, and then I realized that there were so many things that I did wrong in that 3 years where I thought I, moved forward and was okay, that I wanted to share that in a book so that others didn't have to go down that, path that I did, which was like, pretty much delaying my healing. And one of the things I did right was journal. And there were many days being in shock that my head was in a fog and I don't remember, but writing things down, I look back and it was able to check the progress of my healing, which was not going anywhere, and realize that, like, oh my goodness, that happened to me, and he did that, and writing everything down, I was like, I can make this into a book. It's like almost verbatim how I can help anyone else who has experienced betrayal and let them know that they're not alone and there is hope for healing. So that's how that became. And then, of course, public speaking came out of that, and I also decided to get certified to be a PBT, post-betrayal transformation coach. That's a mouthful. And completed the training for that. And life has been just amazing and full of joy, more than I could ever have imagined when I was in that 3, thinking, well, this is how life is going to be. I'm just going to accept it and keep carrying this heavy weight.
Thank you. So what would you say are the winning elements in your, mindset, what kind of shift did you make that allowed you to now live this really amazing life and to go from being grief-stricken and being, hurt and feeling perhaps unloved and unwanted and having so many different feelings of extreme betrayal, and going from that to now experiencing perhaps, love again, or being open to love again, or, being able to kind of experience, I'm not sure if it's new love or more love within that same relationship, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, so I have to share a story about that. So I mentioned earlier that he was, behaving and being the perfect husband for almost 3 years. But during that 3 years, I was babysitting him. I had an app that tracked where he was. Anytime he went out for drinks or dinner, people with work, I asked him, he would send a picture of who he was with. And every time I looked at that app, it was almost like the anxiety came up. If it was like, well, why is he here? And what's he doing? And I'm like, all these questions. And after 3 years, it was just like dragging me down. And I finally went to him and I said, look, I want to give back control. And it was initially his idea to be tracked, just to make me feel comfortable. But after a while, it didn't make me feel comfortable. It made me feel stressed. And by that time, I had taken over the finances, and I also handed over my debit card to him. And I said, I'm going to continue paying the bills, but I'm going to separate our accounts. Here's my debit card. Go ahead and change the password, and you can, just continue to use the account, and I will no longer use it. Well, within a week's time, and what he didn't realize was it was a joint account, and he changed his password, but my password didn't change. So I still had access to the account unbeknownst to him. So after a week, he created a couple of profiles on, sleazy dating sites. And, I was kind of watching. I didn't want to confront him because I wanted to see where it was going to go and how far. And it was a kind of a 2-week period. He set up the profiles, and within a week, he met up with a 27-year-old. And the women he was with were beautiful women, young, age 19 to 29, which was hard because some of them were younger than our daughter's age. And he met up with this 27-year-old, paid her $300 to have sex plus the hotel. And it was a week before our 20th anniversary. And on that day, I served him with divorce papers. And from that, after leaving him, I realized that, I had many triggers, but he was one of my biggest triggers. Every time I saw him, especially if he was naked or anything like that, I envisioned these women who he wanted to show what they looked like, with him. And it was really hard. And when I left, those triggers kind of dissipated. And I realized that, because of that, my healing was being halted. And that's when I decided that, I had already become stronger than I was because I had set boundaries. And one of them was, we'll stay together, but no more cheating. Well, that didn't happen. So I was really proud of myself that I stuck to my boundaries and left, because I realized my worth, and I realized that I wanted more than what I was giving. I deserved more. I was worthy of being loved the way I wanted to be loved. And then you asked about, moving forward with new love. One of my therapists had recommended, wait, a month per year that you've been with someone. I like to recommend, along with that, wait until you've gone through your healing process before you connect with someone new, because quite often, if you haven't healed, you're going to make the same choices and mistakes that you made in choosing a partner again. So that's how that unfolded.
Wow. So tell us about what are the top 5 steps you recommend for entrepreneurial women in order to overcome the pain of trauma of betrayal, and how to kind of start, whether it's with new love or whether to kind of find love where the love kind of died down. What are the kind of steps you suggest for women to take in order to live an abundant, lovely, life that they truly adore?
Yeah, and 5 steps is great because if you go more than that, especially with someone who's just experienced the betrayal, you're so overwhelmed and like, I got to do this, 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 and this. So 5 steps are great. Number one is you need to talk to someone, and I recommend finding a therapist if you choose to stay with your partner or not. You want to find someone that you can go together and separately. Talk about full disclosure. Has your partner told you the entire truth, or is more and more, like in my situation, coming out when you uncover more information? And another thing is try to find someone who is specialized in betrayal trauma. The first couple of therapists I went to, and they were wonderful, but when I shared my story, they were like, shocked. I was like, they wanted me to be their guinea pig to, write down things that they'd never heard before. So once I found someone who was experienced in betrayal and some of the symptoms that are caused from that, like PTSD, many other things, physical ailments, it affects you emotionally, physically, spiritually, and mentally. So number one, talk to a therapist. Number two, if you, try to avoid best you can alcohol and cannabis. Alcohol is a depressant. You've already got a gaping wound. No need to add salt to it, and it's only going to delay your healing. Cannabis may or may not offer temporary relief. The key word is temporary. It's only going to delay your healing, and you're not going to move forward. You're going to be stuck where you were. Number three, you don't want to post your personal life and what happened on social media. Keep that to your trusted friends, between you and your spouse. And there are wonderful groups on Facebook that specialize in betrayal trauma for women and both men. You can join them. You can post anonymously if you're not comfortable. And it's a safe place to get resources and help for healing as well. So that's number three. Number four, and very important, is self-care. Take care of yourself, get the rest you need. You may be overexhausted, but that's okay. That'll eventually go after time. And try to do something for yourself, even if it's just journaling, because sometimes journaling is like letting out your frustrations in pen and paper. And so it's a bit of a release too. And the fifth one would be there's no timeline for grief and healing. So don't think that, oh, this person was okay after a year. This person was even less time. There's no timeline for healing. So if you're not okay right then and there, and it's been a year, whatever, it's okay. It's a process. And in order to heal, you have to feel. You have to go through that grief. You can't jump the stages. You really have to go through each one in order to get through them.
Thank you. What's the best way for entrepreneurial women that were betrayed to overcome the anxiety that happens, and you can say the fear that he will do it again, so much so that you now become almost like a private investigator and always like worrying, instead of like, going out with your female friends and being like, I'm just going out, I'm going to have a really good time. Instead of that, maybe you go, but then you're thinking, oh, my husband might be at home and who knows what he's doing. And therefore I need to like set up some sort of, some tracker on his phone or some video camera, or, I need to watch out for like his friends to see what his friends tell me about him and so on. So you become almost like a private investigator machine, or at least if you're not doing anything in terms of surveilling him, you're still kind of thinking about it. And that takes away so much from like your beauty, because I find that when you are a confident, relaxed, content woman who is properly appreciated by your lover, spouse, or whatever, then you have this relaxed, contented feeling, and that makes you so attractive. And when you're in this fear and anxiety and worry, what happens is that you actually can, in my opinion, become uglier, just because it's like that worry, that anger, that negativity tends to affect so much your appearance, may even give you extra wrinkles. I don't know. So what do you suggest, aside from what you said, which was, of course, very valuable? What else can women do to overcome that pain and the anxiety that is inevitable in a betrayal situation?
Sure. And you mentioned going out with friends. You can enjoy it because you're constantly like living in the past. Anxiety is fear of the past. If you're dwelling on what happened and repeating it over and over in your head, and there's triggers, and where is he? What's he doing? The best thing I like to what helped me with my anxiety, first off, was forgiveness. I had already forgiven my husband, but I hadn't forgiven the affair partners. And I was like, well, why do I have to forgive them? Well, it wasn't about forgiving them to release them and let them be free for what they did. It was letting me be free and releasing the burden of my anger and resentment towards them. So I actually did a little forgiveness ceremony. I got 15 red helium balloons with white strings, 15, and I put each affair partner's name on the balloon. And I one by one, and the red, the helium represented to me their soul. The red was because I'm a Christian and I believe that we've all sinned and we can be forgiven. So the red represented the blood of Jesus going over them, and they too can be washed white as snow. And so I took each balloon and I prayed specifically to forgive each one. It took a couple of hours. And then, this sounds kind of like bad, but it gave me a little bit of satisfaction. I took scissors and I stabbed the balloon to pop to release their souls to the heaven. So they were no longer like attached to me, is what I felt. And once that was done, it was amazing because I had such anxiety that I felt like someone was choking me. It was hard to talk sometimes, and just such overwhelming anxiety. It like was gone. I no longer carried their burden, the hatred towards them. And it was beneficial to me. So I think one of the things is just forgiving to get rid of your anxiety. And also, I think you had another question in there. There were a few.
So how can entrepreneurial women overcome that anxiety, the need that they feel to become like a private investigator? Because you become uglier with that, that worry, that anxiety, and that fear of what he's going to do. It kind of makes you feel, oh my God, I need to become like a private investigator. Where am I going to put, I don't know, some tracker? Where am I going to put like a video camera? Or maybe his friends could be reporting to me. Like, what kind of, antennas can I have everywhere to make sure he's not doing it again?
Yeah, and that's absolutely no way to live, because you're right. It's going to create a lot of stress and anxiety. And the best way is, and I did that for 3 years. I was a detective, and he never told me the truth unless I uncovered more information, and more and more and more. That's why I had 8 different days of discovery over a year's time, where, I found out one thing. First, it was one affair, then it was 5, then it was 6, and then it kept going from there. And some of the information he did share eventually, when he was telling the truth, was too much information, like showing me, when I went to New Zealand on a business trip, it's legal there and I had to wear a condom. that didn't make me feel any better. And then he proceeds to take me to the website and tells me I got to interview 6 different women before I selected the one I was going to have sex with. And he shows me the picture of the beautiful 19-year-old girl that he ended up being with. So it got to be like, there's some things I didn't need to know. You could have told me I went to New Zealand and I cheated there as well. And, you know, just tell me everything, because it was like having the trickle truth was putting me back. It wasn't moving me forward any direction, because it was just like another D-Day, another shock. And how much more, you know, can I take? And I think when I realized that he was my biggest trigger, that's what helped me, was leaving. Now, I know not everyone needs to leave, or you know, they want to work it out. So I think the best thing is through counseling and therapy, talk it over. What are you going to do? What are you going to have in place when your spouse or your partner is triggered by anxiety and fear that you're not doing what they're supposed to do, without the feeling of babysitting? But your spouse really needs to, or your partner needs to, reassure you and make you feel good that it's okay to go out, it's okay to enjoy your friends, so that you don't have to be in this overwhelming state of anxiety, because it's going to affect you physically. You're going to get these wrinkles, you're going to get bags under your eyes because you're going to lose sleep, and it'll affect your business as well, because you're constantly thinking of that and not looking at all the great things that are happening in your life, or can happen in your life, when you're not in the anxious state.
Thank you. A lot of people who betray women and relationships tend to be narcissists. So when confronted, a lot of these narcissists will not actually admit to it. You could have the proof in your phone. You could have the proof in his phone. You could be looking at the same email yourself together, and you could still say, no, it never happened. It's not true. You're crazy. Why are you inventing stuff? This is just your imagination. You could be looking at a video of them. You could be like interrupting them as they are at home in your bed, and they could say, no, this is my sister. I'm just, you know. So what I mean is, like, when you have a relationship that with someone, and then you've kind of like through a betrayal, you discover that that person is actually a narcissist, what do you do then?
Yeah, I didn't know, you know, the term narcissist was used so often before. I didn't really know I mean, I knew what it meant, but I thought it was kind of used a bit loosely. But I realized that my husband definitely was a narcissist. And I know there are different levels. I didn't go into further, but you mentioned that even when you have evidence and they turn it around and they're gaslighting you, they're making you believe, like, I would never do that. Like when I confronted him actually twice, if he was having an affair, and both times, first in person, looked me in the eye and like, I would never do that. I love you too much. Same thing over the phone, angry tone, like, how dare you accuse me of something I would never do? It's your fault for being, you know, paranoid and whatnot. So it would get turned around. So the behavior of narcissism and the constant need for approval of how he looked really made me understand that he needed that constant, and it wasn't enough for me. It was like, I want to know I'm great, not just from my wife, from more people, from more, because I need to hear that I'm great all the time. And they have deep insecurities, but that need to be constantly uplifted never really gets replaced. And you know, I got to the point where I felt sorry for him, because none of these women would have been with him had he not been paying them. And that is definitely not love. And it really made me sad that that's where he felt that that's what he was getting, and needing that, you know, constant affirmation, affection, and Yeah, it was very clear in my eyes what a narcissist was when I started realizing and looking back at the definition and what he was doing.
Thank you. How do you escape a trauma bond? Once you know your partner cheated, but you feel so enamored by them as a person, you maybe adulate them, you adore them for the person that they are at work. Maybe they're very creative, maybe they're very innovative, maybe they're very successful in business, maybe they provide you with a really great home, maybe together you created some wonderful children. And there's so much going in that relationship. There's so much that is a plus in that relationship. And maybe they're really great in bed. And that's what I find when you are, when you have people that betray, they may also have that plus aspect, and it's quite addictive. So how do you escape an addictive trauma bond with someone you deeply love, you have so much in common with, and they just so happen to be a recurring person who betrays?
Yeah, for me, it was, I was definitely stuck in that trauma bond because I was very much in love. I thought of him and myself, we were going to be together forever. We had 6 children that we raised together, and he was an awesome father, is a good father. And there was a lot of things that I'm like, if I leave, I'm splitting the family unit, and because my kids were affected with trauma as well in a different way, but it affected them as well. And I think for me, I realized that I was not, again, I was on a pause, and I was not moving forward because I was so latched onto him. And a lot of it was because I didn't see any signs. So I thought there were many, many signs, but for 3 years when I wasn't, on that healing journey, I believed that there were no signs. I'm like, how could I not know? Where was he? Where was I? We were in love. He said so many wonderful things to me. But when I started my healing journey, I realized that there were many signs. And I think once you look back and face them, that there were signs. But when you trust someone wholeheartedly and 100%, you take them for their word. So you're not really, wondering, well, why did he untag himself on Facebook? Why, when he goes for a hike, is it in the rain? Why can't I get a hold of him when he's in another city at a hotel in the evening? So there were a lot of things that he did that were signs, but he lied so well and twisted the truth so many times that I just was believing him. And I think it's good, and I write that in my book too, the signs that were there and how to deal with them. And it's not to snoop or check on someone, and even if you're in a great relationship, it's okay every once in a while just to ask a question about, why did you untag yourself on Facebook? And, can you give me a copy of your boarding pass so I know when you're returning home? Can you make sure that the front desk has my name so that when I contact you, the phone goes right through to your room? Things like that, just little things that came up, but they kind of built up over time. And the lies were so repetitive. So my belief was the same. I just believed him at his word for, 20 years.
Thank you. How can women regain their sense of self-worth so that they see themselves again as beautiful goddesses that deserve love, and so that through that self-love, they can attract the right partner again?
Yeah, a couple of things. Definitely words of affirmation for yourself. I bought a little thing on Amazon. It was like kind of words of affirmation, but cards, like 365 every day that you could do for self-care, which is highly important. It would say something and then suggest an action, what to do for self-care, and or write things down, your thoughts and your feelings. And that was really helpful for me, just making sure that I felt good about myself, because I wasn't using negative affirmation, which I was doing quite a bit of. Like, I'd stand in the mirror, you're ugly, you're fat, like I'd say everything bad about myself. But I turned it around and kind of like reprogrammed my brain to speak positively about myself and to learn to love myself again, and realize that I wasn't the problem. He was the problem. And also making a list of boundaries and sticking to them.
Thank you. Now, one thing that stands out when I look at you is that you are so pretty. Like, you are such a beautiful woman. And
Thank you.
What I find quite interesting about that is that there are women like you, like that look like Kim Kardashian, that look like Khloe Kardashian, or that look so amazing, like you, like so beautiful, such beautiful eyes, and like with so much love for everything that you're doing. And there will be men who will look at you and they will think about, oh my God, this is a goddess. I need this woman in my life, and I'm going to forever worship her as the goddess that she is. And there will be others who will be like looking at you as, this is my prey for the night. And there's nothing that you can do about that, because they will always be thinking that. And it's not that, oh, you're going to be wearing a shorter skirt, or you're going to be slimmer, or you're going to do, I don't know, there's nothing that will actually do that for them, because they need to do their own healing. So I wonder whether there's anything that you suggest in terms of, once you've experienced betrayal, I imagine there must be a feeling of feeling a little bit threatened by other women. Do you ever feel that? You, like, for example, when you are about to have, I don't know, a new relationship, when you've started a new relationship, do you find that little, like, always at the back of your head, thinking about, there's, Pedro, maybe your new husband, as an example, has a new secretary and she's very attractive. And do you find yourself thinking, oh, he could be doing something, although there's no reason to believe that is the case? And if yes, how do women in general, not necessarily you, how do women in general cope well with this newfound threat, you can say, that they have potentially at the back of their head? How do they eliminate that from their head and replace that with love for all,
Yeah, I had, for me, it was triggers that affected me. For example, he loved petite Asian women, and they were all, like I said, young and beautiful. So anytime I would see a beautiful Asian woman, whether it be a movie or out in public, I was triggered by it, and it would take me back. And it was really hard to get past that, because when I wrote down the triggers that I had, and there were over 120 of them, whether it be, going through Waikiki, because he was, at 25 different hotels there, whether it was, someone mentioning New Zealand, because that's where, he had sex, or the cities that he was in with other women, or certain songs, he'd create a playlist for them, and things like that were really triggering for me. And honestly, it was time, because for 3 years I was kind of in victim mode. But once I started to go towards the light, I like to say, those triggers, I'm not saying time heals, but for me it did. And now I still get triggered, but I don't hang on to them like I used to. I'm not in that victim mode. And I'm not even in the survival mode. I'm like more than surviving. I'm thriving and loving life. And it was time, and realizing that there was nothing that I could do to control that. And when it comes in, I just acknowledge it and go, go on to something else. And whether it be, pick up some weights and move my arms up and down for a few minutes just to go on to the next thought was helpful for me. Oh, I lost your voice.
Where can entrepreneurs find you?
I'm sorry?
Where can entrepreneurs find you?
Yeah, on my website, it's help4betrayaltrauma.com, and you can read my bio there. I'm also offering coaching sessions. You can request time with me. You can read a little summary of my book that will be published any day now. I'm excited about that. And if you want to sign up for pre-sales, you can click on pre-sale, scroll down, put your name and email, and you'll be the first and only group that gets to buy the book before it hits the stands. So
follow me for more interviews with world's most innovative health change makers to live your healthiest life ever.